Every morning, the world offers you a choice. You can either drift with the current, letting distractions, comforts, and excuses decide the shape of your life, or you can take up the more demanding path, the path of working on yourself. It's not glamorous. It rarely brings immediate praise, but it is the work that truly matters. Because before you can lead, build, or inspire, you must first master yourself. The Stoics were not obsessed with changing the world so much as they were obsessed with changing themselves. Marcus Aurelius, the emperor of Rome, who could have surrounded himself with every luxury and indulgence, reminded himself daily not to fall into arrogance, anger, or self-pity. He knew that power without discipline corrupts, and influence without character collapses. His private writings, which became the Meditations, are not a record of victory speeches, but of a man wrestling with himself, holding himself to account, and sharpening his own mind against the grindstone of life. Working hard on yourself begins with honesty. Not the kind of shallow honesty we offer in conversations, but a radical honesty in which you strip away the stories you tell to justify your weaknesses. We love to say we are too busy, too tired, too unlucky, but when we step back, what we often see is fear disguised as limitation. Seneca once wrote that it is not that we have a short life, but that we waste much of it. The hours slip through our fingers not because they are few, but because we allow them to be stolen by gossip, distraction, or laziness. To work on yourself means reclaiming those hours and using them as a craftsman uses his tools, with intention, patience, and care.
The work is quiet. No one applauds when you choose to read a book instead of scrolling endlessly on your phone. No one cheers when you resist anger in an argument or when you drag yourself out of bed for the discipline of exercise. But these small acts, invisible to others, are bricks laid in the construction of character. Epictetus told his students not to explain their philosophy, but to embody it. You do not need to announce your discipline. It will show in the way you carry yourself, in the steadiness of your mind when others are shaken, in the respect you earn, not through demand, but through presence. Modern life has made self-mastery harder, not easier. Temptation is always one click away. Comfort is always within reach. We are offered shortcuts to happiness in the form of purchases, substances, and fleeting pleasures. But shortcuts do not lead to fulfillment. They lead to emptiness. You cannot buy resilience, you cannot download courage, and you cannot fake wisdom. These qualities are forged the slow way, through effort, repetition, and sacrifice. Every moment of resistance, every small victory over laziness is another strike of the hammer against the steel of your soul. The Stoics did not believe in perfection, only in progress. Marcus Aurelius would often chastise himself for failing to live up to his own ideals, yet he did not wallow in guilt. He reminded himself to begin again, as many times as necessary. This is an essential truth about working on yourself. You will stumble, you will regress, you will fail. But each failure is a lesson, not a verdict. As long as you return to the work, you remain on the path. The true danger is not failure, but giving up on the attempt.
Imagine your life as a garden. Left unattended, weeds take over. Neglect shows quickly. But with steady effort, watering, pruning, and planting, the garden becomes a place of beauty and nourishment. Your mind, your habits, your character, they are no different. Work is required daily. Not frantic, desperate work, but steady and mindful care. And just like the gardener, you will never be finished. There is always another weed to pull, another branch to trim, another seed to plant. This is not discouraging, it is liberating, for it means there is always room to grow. Working on yourself also means facing discomfort willingly. The Stoics practiced voluntary hardship, sleeping on the floor or fasting, not out of self-punishment, but to train the mind to endure what life may one day demand. In our world, this might mean pushing yourself to learn a difficult skill, confronting an uncomfortable truth, or enduring the silence required for deep reflection. Comfort dulls the edge of the soul, while discomfort sharpens it. Every time you step into challenge, rather than retreat from it, you become stronger. There is also the matter of integrity. To work hard on yourself is not simply to build private strength, but to live in such a way that your values align with your actions. Hypocrisy is easy. It is the default state of most people. Integrity is difficult because it asks for consistency even when no one is watching. It demands that the person you are in public and the person you are in private be one and the same. This is exhausting if you live for appearances, but freeing if you live for truth.
The fruits of this labor are not always immediate. Just as training for months shows its results only in rare moments of competition, working on yourself pays off when life tests you. When crisis strikes, when loss arrives, when chaos surrounds you, it is then that your preparation reveals itself. The Stoic who has trained his mind does not collapse under pressure, but stands firm, not because he feels no pain, but because he has practiced responding with courage, clarity, and calm. And yet, it is important to remember that working on yourself is not a selfish pursuit. The stronger and wiser you become, the more you are able to serve others. A disciplined mind is less likely to lash out in anger, more likely to offer compassion. A resilient spirit can carry not only its own burdens, but help lift the burdens of others. The Stoics believed that we are part of a greater whole, a community, a cosmos. To neglect yourself is to weaken your contribution to that whole. To refine yourself is to make the world, in some small way, better. So how do you begin? You begin here, now, in this very moment, with the decision to stop postponing the work. You begin by examining your habits with honesty, by cutting away what weakens you, and by choosing instead what strengthens you, no matter how small. You begin by remembering, as Marcus Aurelius wrote, that you could leave life right now. And so you must decide what kind of person you want to be before that final moment comes.
The work will never be finished, and that is the beauty of it. Each day is a new chance to chisel away at your rough edges, to sharpen your mind, to deepen your character. Progress, not perfection. Direction, not destination. The only true failure is to give up the effort and drift through life unshaped, untouched, unchanged. So rise each day as though the world is your training ground. See obstacles not as insults, but as opportunities. Let discipline be your shield, wisdom your compass, and integrity your sword. Work hard on yourself, harder than you work on your job, harder than you work on your reputation, harder than you work on pleasing others. Because when you master yourself, you are free. And freedom is not the absence of responsibility, but the power to meet responsibility with strength. Freedom is not escape from challenge, but the courage to face challenge with open eyes. Freedom is not the promise of comfort, but the presence of character that endures without it. That is what the Stoics knew. That is what still holds true today. So begin, and begin again tomorrow, and again the day after that. Let your life become the evidence of your effort. Let your character be the proof of your labor. And when the end comes, you will not regret the hours you spent working on yourself, because they will have been the hours in which you truly lived. Imagine a person climbing a mountain without knowing why they climb. Each step feels heavy. each stone in their path unbearable, because the struggle has no meaning. Now imagine someone climbing with the knowledge that at the summit lies not only a breathtaking view, but also the fulfillment of a deeply cherished purpose. The same steep path, the same fatigue, yet the burden is transformed into determination. This is what discipline really is, not dragging yourself unwillingly, but being pulled forward by a vision so compelling that setbacks become lessons rather than defeats. The Stoics remind us that setbacks are inevitable. Life is not smooth terrain. You will stumble. You will miss the mark. You will falter. But to the disciplined mind, these are not reasons to stop. They are lessons, signals pointing the way toward refinement. Seneca once wrote that difficulty strengthens the mind as labor strengthens the body. To encounter a setback is not to fail at discipline, it is to practice it. The disciplined person knows that the test is not in never falling, but in rising with clarity each time they fall. Yet how do we cultivate this way of living? How do we move from the old model of discipline as punishment to the Stoic model of discipline as alignment? The path is subtle, but it begins with knowing why you act. Without a clear sense of why, no discipline can survive. Ask yourself what compels you forward. If your reason is shallow, your effort will be fragile. If your reason is rooted in something deep, something that resonates with who you wish to become, then discipline no longer feels like restraint. It becomes devotion. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself every morning that he rose not for idleness or indulgence, but because he had a duty to fulfill as a human being. He anchored his actions in service to reason and to others. Without this anchor, he would drift. So too with us.
When people hear the word discipline, they often imagine a kind of harsh self-punishment, a daily struggle of forcing oneself to act against resistance, dragging the body and mind through endless tasks. But discipline, in its truest sense, is not about chains or pressure. It is not about beating yourself into submission or waging war against your own will. Discipline, rightly understood, is a form of freedom. It is the art of aligning your actions with your highest values so that what you do flows naturally even when life is hard. The Stoics knew this well. For Marcus Aurelius, discipline was not a grim duty, but a harmony between reason and action. For Epictetus, it was not about rigid control, but about choosing to focus on what is within our power. And for Seneca, discipline was about living intentionally rather than drifting aimlessly. What all three understood was this: discipline is not about suffering through life, but creating conditions where virtuous action becomes almost effortless. This idea may sound strange in a world where discipline is often sold as sheer willpower. But think about it. If discipline were only about gritting your teeth, it would eventually collapse under exhaustion. No one can live an entire life pushing against themselves. True discipline is sustainable because it grows out of clarity, purpose, and vision. It becomes less about forcing yourself to move and more about being drawn forward by something greater.
Modern life often distracts us with countless trivial pursuits. We are tempted by convenience, by shortcuts, by pleasures that soothe us in the moment but leave us weaker over time. Discipline in such a world requires that we keep our why visible. This can mean writing it down, placing it before your eyes, reminding yourself daily of the purpose behind your actions. If you do not know the summit you are climbing toward, the path will feel endless. But when the goal is clear, the struggle sharpens into progress. Clarity of purpose is not enough by itself, however. To act consistently, we must remove the chaos of constant decision-making. The Stoics loved simplicity, and discipline thrives on it. Routines are often misunderstood as boring or restrictive, but in reality, they are liberating. When you no longer spend energy on whether or not to do something, you free yourself to simply do it. Decide once and let habit carry you forward. Treat your daily practices not as negotiable tasks, but as sacred appointments with yourself. In this way, discipline ceases to be a question each day and becomes a way of being. Still, even the most disciplined mind must guard against despair when effort feels heavy. Here, the Stoics offer a shift in perspective. Our thoughts shape our reality more than circumstances do. If we approach challenges with the belief that they are unbearable, they will become so. But if we meet them with the attitude that they are opportunities to grow, we transform their weight into strength. Instead of whispering, "I hope I can endure this," remind yourself, "I can endure this." Instead of sighing, "This is too hard for me," declare, "This is a challenge I will learn from." The Stoics taught that the mind is sovereign. It decides whether an obstacle is a curse or a gift.
Consider also how small victories shape our journey. The human brain is drawn to rewards, and progress often feels invisible when we only focus on distant horizons. Discipline is sustained not by waiting for grand triumphs, but by acknowledging the value of each step. Celebrate the moments when you overcome resistance, no matter how minor they seem. Pour yourself a cup of coffee after finishing a difficult task. Take a deep breath and savor the sense of completion, or smile simply at having kept your word to yourself. These acknowledgments may seem trivial, but they strengthen the bond between effort and fulfillment. Over time, your mind learns to crave this progress. Another tool the Stoics anticipated is visualization. They often practiced premeditatio malorum, imagining potential hardships in advance so they could meet them with composure. In a similar way, modern discipline can be strengthened by rehearsing success in the mind. Close your eyes and picture yourself performing the hard task with ease. Imagine the feeling of completing it, the pride that comes not from indulgence, but from mastery. This is not fantasy, it is mental training. Just as an athlete rehearses movements before stepping onto the field, the disciplined soul rehearses virtue in thought before enacting it in life. Yet, inevitably, there will be days when we fall short. Perhaps you skip a workout, surrender to distraction, or abandon a habit you promised to keep. The undisciplined mind responds to these lapses with guilt and self-condemnation, which often lead to quitting altogether. The disciplined mind, however, remembers the Stoic principle that perfection is not required, only persistence. Missing one step does not erase the path. When you stumble, do not quit, reset. Establish for yourself a simple rule. When you miss a task, you will return stronger in the next task. This transforms failure into fuel. Each lapse becomes a reminder not of your weakness, but of your capacity to recover.
This, perhaps, is the greatest secret. Discipline is not about never faltering, but about never staying fallen. Life will not grant you unbroken consistency. Discipline is about building resilience, about circling back when you veer off course, about refusing to surrender your long-term vision to short-term setbacks. In this way, discipline is not a cage, but a compass. It does not confine you, it directs you. It allows you to walk through life not as a slave to impulse, but as a master of intention. The disciplined person is not rigid, but steady, not harsh, but purposeful. They are free because they are not ruled by passing moods or desires. They are guided by something higher. The Stoics would tell us that discipline is not about denying ourselves joy, but about seeking the deeper joy that comes from self-respect, from living in harmony with our values.
It is about choosing the pain of growth over the ease of stagnation, the challenge of virtue over the comfort of vice. And it is about recognizing that every day is an opportunity to begin again, to align ourselves anew with the path we have chosen. So when discipline feels impossible, remember this: it is not about force, it is about clarity. It is not about rigidity, it is about flow. It is not about punishment, it is about freedom. When your why is strong enough, your routines supportive, your mindset resilient, your victories celebrated, your vision rehearsed, and your setbacks reframed, discipline becomes less of a burden and more of a way of life. In the end, discipline is not hard. What is hard is living without it, adrift, aimless, and at the mercy of impulses. The Stoics knew that the disciplined life, though it requires effort, is the only life truly worth living. For in discipline, we find not only progress, but peace. Not only achievement, but alignment. Not only the strength to endure, but the wisdom to flourish.
We often think we are living, when in reality we are merely delaying. We tell ourselves that we will pursue our dream when the time is right, that we will apologize later, but the time is never right, because life does not wait for us. Seneca chastised those who spend their lives in preparing to live. A wise life begins now, not tomorrow, not next year. If you wish to live more fully, stop assuming there will be more time, and act as though each day were a gift entrusted to you, fragile and fleeting. Living wisely also means confronting our mortality, not to cultivate despair, but to free us from illusion. Death is not an enemy to be feared, but a teacher to be heeded. When you remember that you will not be here forever, arguments over petty insults lose their grip. When you recall that your days are numbered, the pressure to impress strangers on the internet becomes absurd. Awareness of death clarifies what truly matters: love, kindness, integrity, presence. To meditate on mortality is not morbid, it is liberating. It pulls us out of the fog of trivial concerns and redirects us toward what is worthy of our limited time. Consider how often we waste life in worry. We fret about outcomes we cannot control, about the opinions of others, about hypothetical scenarios that may never come. Epictetus advised us to focus only on what lies within our control: our thoughts, our choices, our actions. Everything else belongs to the realm of fortune, beyond our command. If you wish to live wisely, stop surrendering your short life to anxieties over what you cannot change. Instead, invest your energy where it counts, in how you respond, how you choose, how you show up in the present moment.
Life is shorter than we dare to admit. We often live as if we have an endless supply of days, as though tomorrow is guaranteed, as though we will always have time later to say what must be said, to pursue what we desire, to become who we hope to be. Yet the Stoics remind us with a sobering clarity: time is the only true possession we have, and once it slips away, no fortune, no power, no pleading can bring it back. Seneca wrote that it is not that we have a short life, but that we waste much of it. The question then is not how many years we are given, but how we choose to use the ones that are already in our hands. To live wisely is to live with the awareness that the clock is always ticking. The tragedy is not in death itself. Death is natural, inevitable, part of the order of things. The tragedy lies in living as though life were endless, in sleepwalking through our days, postponing joy, neglecting love, chasing after things that add little meaning. We hurry, we consume, we distract ourselves endlessly. But do we truly live?
Marcus Aurelius, emperor and philosopher, reminded himself daily of this truth. You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. If one lives with this awareness, every conversation, every action, every choice carries a weight and urgency that cuts through the trivial. But how does one actually live wisely in a short life? First, by learning to distinguish between what is essential and what is merely noise. We are bombarded by demands, by the expectations of others, by the endless voices of culture that tell us what we should value. Success, wealth, status, possessions, all these things may have their place, but they are not the core of a good life. The Stoics argue that virtue, the cultivation of wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance, is the true measure of a life well lived. For when you strip everything else away, what remains is your character. The car you drive, the followers you collect, the titles on your resume, all fade. But the person you become, the way you treat others, the steadiness of your soul in the face of hardship, these endure.
The Stoics would also remind us to live in accordance with nature, not merely the external world, but our own nature as rational and social beings. To live wisely is to fulfill our role as humans, to use reason to guide our choices, to act with justice toward others, to contribute to the greater whole. When you live for mere pleasure or selfish gain, your life shrinks. When you live with purpose and service, your life expands, no matter how short it may be. Ultimately, the shortness of life is not a curse, but a call. If life were endless, we would take it for granted. It is precisely its brevity that gives it urgency and beauty. The falling leaf, the fleeting sunset, the passing season, all remind us of life's transience. But rather than despair, we can let this truth inspire us to live with greater depth. Every day is a page in a story that will not last forever. The question is, what kind of story will it be? To live wisely, then, is not to stretch life endlessly, but to fill it meaningfully. It is to wake each morning with the knowledge that the day ahead is not owed to us, but gifted. It is to speak words of kindness while there is still time, to forgive while we can, to love without delay. It is to practice virtue, to embrace simplicity, to endure hardship with courage, to meet death without fear. Life is short, yes, but shortness does not diminish its value. It magnifies it. As Seneca wrote, life is long if you know how to use it. And so the question remains not how many years we have, but how we will live the ones we do. Will we spend them in distraction, in regret, in pursuit of illusions? Or will we live them wisely, awake to the preciousness of each moment, grounded in virtue, rich in gratitude, present to love? The choice is ours, but the time is not infinite. The sands continue to fall. The wise learn to cherish them before the last grain slips through. Wisdom also lies in embracing simplicity. The modern world convinces us that happiness lies in accumulation, more possessions, more achievements, more recognition. But the Stoics teach the opposite. Contentment arises from needing less, not more. When you realize that you already possess everything you need to live well, your mind, your capacity for virtue, the present moment, you become less enslaved to endless desires. Simplicity frees you from the exhausting chase for what never truly satisfies. It opens space for gratitude, for presence, for peace. Living wisely does not mean avoiding hardship, for no life is free of suffering. Illness,
loss, betrayal, failure, all will find us eventually. But the Stoics teach that adversity is not an interruption of life, but an essential part of it. To live well is not to seek comfort, but to cultivate resilience. Every challenge is an opportunity to practice strength, patience, and courage. Marcus Aurelius likened obstacles to a fire. Throw more wood on it, and it only burns brighter. Your struggles can consume you, or they can forge you into someone stronger. The choice is yours. If life is short, then gratitude must be one of our guiding practices. How often do we rush through our days without pausing to notice their beauty? The taste of a simple meal, the warmth of sunlight on skin, the sound of laughter. These are not small things, they are life itself. Gratitude is not naive optimism. It is a sober recognition that everything you have could be gone tomorrow. To give thanks daily is to honor the gift of being alive, however brief that gift may be.
Another enemy of a wise life is distraction. Our age offers infinite ways to escape boredom, to numb discomfort, to avoid silence. But every hour lost to mindless scrolling, every day consumed by empty busyness, is an hour stolen from your one and only life. Ask yourself, will I look back on this with gratitude, or will I regret the countless hours I let dissolve into nothing? To live wisely is not to avoid leisure, but to choose it intentionally. Reading, reflecting, walking, deep conversations, these nourish the soul. Distraction, on the other hand, drains it. The Stoics encourage us to reclaim our attention, for attention is the currency of life itself. To live wisely is also to cultivate relationships that matter. No one on their deathbed regrets not spending more time in the office or obsessing over trivial ambitions. They regret the moments of love unspoken, the time not spent with family, the friendships left unattended. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself not only of his own mortality, but also of the mortality of everyone around him. You will soon be dead, and so will they. This awareness should not make us withdraw, but rather should deepen our sense of gratitude for the people who share our brief span of existence. Every hug, every laugh, every shared silence is a treasure that will one day vanish. To live wisely is to savor them now, before they are gone. When your mind is left wandering aimlessly, without purpose, without structure, it rarely drifts toward peace or joy. Instead, it gravitates toward worry, comparison, regret, and fear. Think about it. When do you start worrying about what others think of you? Usually when you're not focused on meaningful work. When do you replay old mistakes in your head, often in the quiet hours when you have nothing else to fill your attention? And when does anxiety about the future strike the hardest? Not when you're fully engaged in solving today's problems, but when you're sitting still, letting your imagination spiral unchecked. The Stoics understood this well. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." If our minds are left unattended, they absorb negativity like a sponge left in dirty water. But if we deliberately direct them toward reason, purpose, and creative action, we train ourselves to think clearly, act wisely, and live peacefully. So how do we stop negative thinking? The Stoic answer is clear. We must not let the mind sit idle. We must give it noble work to do. To understand this, we need to first accept a harsh truth. The human brain has a natural bias toward the negative. Psychologists today call it the negativity bias.
Evolution wired us to focus on threats more than opportunities. Thousands of years ago, if our ancestors ignored a rustle in the bushes, they might get eaten by a predator. If they forgot about past mistakes, they might repeat them and not survive the next time. So the human mind developed a survival instinct, constantly scanning for danger, replaying past errors, and imagining worst-case scenarios. But here's the catch. What once kept us alive now keeps us anxious. Epictetus warned against this when he said, "Man is not worried by real problems so much as by his imagined anxieties about real problems." In other words, it's not the event itself that crushes us, but the endless chatter of the mind when it has nothing better to do. Think of your mind like a field. If you don't cultivate it, weeds will grow. If you don't sow good seeds, thorns will take over. And if you don't direct its energy, negativity will run wild. That's why when the mind is idle, it rarely rests in peace. Instead, it turns against us. It replays past mistakes endlessly, making us prisoners of regret. It imagines future catastrophes, most of which never come true. It magnifies small problems into unbearable burdens. And it whispers doubts and insecurities, poisoning our self-confidence. Seneca put it bluntly, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." When the mind is free-floating, it invents suffering. And soon, your greatest enemy is not the world outside, but the world inside your head.
So what's the solution? Keep the mind occupied. Not with distractions, not with endless consumption, but with meaningful, creative, and purposeful work. The Stoics were not idle dreamers. They believed philosophy must be lived, not just thought about. Life was to be spent in action, working, serving, creating, and contributing. Marcus Aurelius, despite being emperor of Rome, constantly reminded himself, "At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, I am rising to do the work of a human being." Work gives the mind focus, purpose gives it direction, and creativity gives it joy. When your hands are busy with worthwhile tasks, your mind has less room for negativity. Consider the difference between 2 evenings. In the first, you sit idle, scrolling endlessly on your phone. Anxieties creep in. You compare yourself to others. You feel restless, drained. In the second, you pick up a pen and write a few pages in your journal, or you paint, or you fix something in your home, or you learn a new skill. You end the evening with a sense of progress, however small. The activities may be simple, but the effect is profound. You've taken control of your attention, redirected your thoughts, and transformed potential anxiety into productive energy. This is why the Stoics urged us to live intentionally, not passively. Epictetus said, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it." To embody philosophy is to keep your mind busy with what builds you up, not what tears you down. The practices can be simple. When you wake up, don't give your mind the chance to wander into worry. Begin with an action, exercise, journaling, or work on something creative. When you are tempted to drift, keep your hands engaged with tasks that demand both focus and creativity. Whether it is writing, drawing, gardening, or even cooking, creative labor channels restless energy into constructive form.
Even your leisure can be transformed. Free time doesn't have to mean wasted time. Instead of consuming endless noise from social media or entertainment, you can dedicate leisure to reading, learning, or reflecting. Seneca reminded us, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." And when the mind insists on circling negative thoughts, journaling can serve as an anchor. Negative thinking thrives in silence, but when you write down your thoughts, you separate yourself from them. You see them for what they are, just thoughts, not truths. Marcus Aurelius's Meditations was, in essence, his journal. He used it to wrestle with doubt, anger, and anxiety, and turn them into wisdom. The Stoics also believe the mind must be directed towards service. A life lived only for oneself is shallow. If you direct your mind toward helping others, encouraging a friend, mentoring someone, or contributing to your community, you no longer have space for self-destructive negativity. Service anchors the mind in meaning and lifts it out of narrow self-concern. At this point, some might object, but don't we need rest? Isn't doing nothing sometimes good? The answer is yes, but there is a crucial difference between rest and idleness. Rest is deliberate. It is chosen recovery. It refreshes you. Idleness is passive. It is aimless drifting. It drains you. A Stoic rests intentionally, reading, meditating, walking in nature, or quietly reflecting. But they avoid idleness, where the mind becomes a breeding ground for negativity.
The key Stoic shift is this. Most people try to escape negative thinking. They distract themselves with entertainment, substances, or constant activity. But distraction is temporary. As soon as the noise stops, the negative thoughts return stronger. The Stoic way is not escape, but engagement. You don't run from your thoughts, you guide them. You give them higher work to do. You assign them purpose. Marcus Aurelius compared the human mind to a fire. If you throw challenges into it, it doesn't go out, it burns brighter. In the same way, if you direct your thoughts into noble work, negativity becomes fuel for growth, not destruction. Let's return to where we began. The idle mind is not free, it is enslaved. It becomes a breeding ground for fear, anxiety, and self-doubt. Left unchecked, it will pull you downward. But when the mind is occupied with creativity, service, and purpose, it becomes your ally. It strengthens you. It carries you forward. So the Stoic answer to negative thinking is not to beg your mind to stop wandering, but to give it a worthy path to walk. As Marcus Aurelius reminds us, waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. Don't argue with your thoughts. Don't fight your negativity endlessly. Instead, act, create, build, serve, learn. Direct your mind into purpose and watch negativity fade like shadows retreating before the morning sun.
We live in an age of endless notifications, constant comparison, and a world that rarely lets us sit still. Yet nearly 2,000 years ago, philosophers like Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus faced the same inner struggles: fear, anger, desire, and distraction. Their answer was Stoicism, a philosophy not of ivory towers, but of real life. Today, we'll explore 10 Stoic rules, not abstract theories, but practical principles that can help you live with clarity, resilience, and peace in our chaotic modern society.
Rule 1. Control what you can, release what you can't. Imagine your phone dies right before a big presentation. You can panic, curse the timing, or spiral into frustration. But none of that changes reality. The Stoics taught us some things are within our control. Most are not. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." In today's terms, you can't control traffic, the stock market, or other people's opinions. But you can control your choices, your effort, and your mindset. This one shift alone frees you from much unnecessary suffering.
Rule 2. Practice voluntary discomfort. Modern life is built around comfort. We avoid hunger, cold, silence, and boredom at all costs. But the Stoics believed that too much comfort makes us weak. Seneca advised deliberately practicing discomfort, fasting, walking in the cold, or sleeping on the floor to toughen the mind. Why? Because when life inevitably gets hard, you won't be shocked. You'll be ready. In today's world, this might mean putting your phone down and enduring silence, taking a cold shower, or saying no to unnecessary luxuries. It's not about punishing yourself. It's about proving to yourself that you are stronger than your cravings and fears.
Rule 3. Focus on character, not reputation. We live in the age of personal branding. Social media teaches us to obsess over how we appear instead of who we are. But the Stoics warned against this trap. Epictetus put it bluntly, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." Reputation is fickle. It depends on others. Character is steady. It depends on you. In practice, this means prioritizing honesty over likes, discipline over applause, and integrity over image. Ask yourself daily, am I living according to my values, or am I just trying to look good?
Rule 4. Use your time like gold. Seneca wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it." Think about how much time vanishes each day into scrolling, worrying, or chasing things that don't matter. Time is the one resource you can never get back. The Stoic way is to treat time as your most valuable possession. Before saying yes to another meeting, another binge watch, another obligation, ask, is this worthy of my finite life? In modern society, guarding your time is an act of rebellion and one of the most stoic things you can do.
Rule 5. See obstacles as opportunities. Life will hit you with setbacks, job loss, failure, heartbreak. Most people see these as unfair roadblocks. The Stoics saw them as fuel. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Instead of asking, "Why me?" ask, "How can I use this?" That delay in your career? Maybe it's a chance to develop new skills. That breakup? Maybe it's an opening to rediscover yourself. Modern translation, life doesn't happen to you, it happens for you, if you choose to see it that way. Rule 6. Master your emotions. We live in a world that constantly provokes us. News designed to outrage, social media engineered to addict, algorithms that prey on anger and fear. The Stoics didn't say, "Don't feel emotions." They said, "Don't let emotions rule you." Epictetus reminded us, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Anger, envy, and fear are natural, but if you let them dictate your choices, you surrender your freedom. In practice, this means pausing before reacting, taking a breath before sending that angry text, choosing reason over rage. That's true strength. Rule 7. Live in accordance with nature. For the Stoics, nature meant two things: the larger universe and your own human nature. Modern society constantly pulls us away from both. We spend more time indoors, staring at screens than ever before. We chase endless consumption, forgetting that humans are wired for simplicity, for connection, for purpose. To live stoically today means returning to what's natural, spending time outside, nurturing relationships, eating simply, working with purpose. It's
Rule 8. Practice negative visualization. Imagine losing the things you take for granted: your health, your loved ones, even your freedom. To most people, that sounds depressing. To the Stoics, it was a way to cultivate gratitude and resilience. Marcus Aurelius would remind himself daily that his loved ones were mortal. Seneca wrote letters imagining exile, poverty, and death. This wasn't morbid, it was freeing. Because when you've mentally prepared for loss, you stop clinging, you start appreciating. In today's terms, reflect for a moment before bed. What if tomorrow your phone, your home, your job were gone? Suddenly, the life you already have looks more than enough. Rule 9. Be of service to others. Stoicism isn't about retreating into yourself. It's about playing your role well in the larger human community. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "What brings no benefit to the hive brings none to the bee." Modern society glorifies self-interest, but Stoicism teaches that true fulfillment comes from contribution. Helping a colleague, being present with family, showing kindness to strangers. These acts align you with nature's design. We are social creatures meant to support one another. Service isn't just moral, it's deeply practical. A life of selfish pleasure is shallow. A life of service is meaningful.
Rule 10. Remember memento mori. You will die. This is the Stoics' most powerful reminder. Life is finite. You could leave this earth tomorrow. Far from depressing, this truth sharpens life. It forces you to stop postponing what matters, to stop wasting time on grudges, petty arguments, and empty pursuits. In our society, death is avoided in conversation, hidden behind hospital walls and distractions. But the Stoics faced it head on. When you remember you are mortal, you stop living on autopilot. You start living deliberately. As Marcus Aurelius urged himself, you could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think.
These 10 rules are not about retreating from modern life. They're about meeting it with strength, wisdom, and calm. Control your mind, not the world. Welcome discomfort. Don't fear it. Build character, not just reputation. Guard your time like gold. Turn obstacles into opportunities. Master your emotions. Live simply and naturally. Practice gratitude through negative visualization. Serve others. And above all, remember your mortality. If you live these rules, you won't escape life's challenges, but you will meet them as the Stoics did, with courage, with clarity, and with peace. So ask yourself, which of these 10 rules will you start living today? Welcome back to Stoic Flow, successful, fulfilled friends.
Life isn't about giant leaps. It's about the small things you whisper to yourself every single day. And those whispers, they shape your reality. So today, I'm giving you 12 powerful things to tell yourself daily. 12 mental shifts that can completely transform how you live. Short, simple, but life-changing. Let's dive in. 1. I control my response. You can't control traffic. You can't control rude people. You can't control the rain ruining your picnic. But you can control your reaction. Remind yourself every morning, I control my response. That simple phrase puts the power back in your hands. Stress reduced. Drama ignored. Peace protected. Because the moment you stop giving away your emotional remote control, life feels lighter. Today is a fresh start. Yesterday, gone. That mistake, over. That embarrassment, history.
Every sunrise is a reset button. Say it with me. Today is a fresh start. Why carry yesterday's baggage into today's opportunity? Instead, walk into the morning like you've been given a brand new life. Because, in a way, you have.
3. Progress, not perfection. Perfection is a prison. It tells you not to start until everything is perfect. But progress is freedom. Remind yourself, progress, not perfection. Write the messy draft. Go for the short workout. Take the tiny step. Little moves done consistently beat waiting for the perfect moment that never comes.
4. I am enough. Society screams, do more, get more, be more, and it's exhausting. But you, right now, you're already enough, flaws included. Telling yourself, I am enough, doesn't mean you'll stop growing. It means you'll stop hating yourself while you grow. And that's the foundation of real confidence. 5. Discomfort equals growth. Want muscles? You lift heavy. Want knowledge? You study hard. Want courage? You step into fear. Discomfort isn't the enemy. It's the gym where your character trains. Repeat it. Discomfort equals growth. Instead of running from challenges, start running toward them. Because every challenge you face makes the next one easier. 6. I don't chase, I attract. Stop begging for validation. Stop running after people who don't value you. Stop chasing approval. Shift your mindset. I don't chase, I attract. When you work on yourself, your skills, your health, your peace, the right people and opportunities naturally come closer. Magnet energy greater than desperate energy.
7. Small habits create big results. Think about it. A single drop of water doesn't carve a canyon, but drops, over time, they create the Grand Canyon. Your life works the same way. Tell yourself, small habits create big results. Read 10 minutes a day. Save $5 a day. Do 1 push-up a day. Tiny actions compound, and 1 year from now, you'll be unrecognizable.
8. I release what I can't control. Worry is like a rocking chair. It gives you something to do, but gets you nowhere. Traffic? You can't control. Weather? You can't control. Other people's opinions? Definitely can't control. Say it out loud. I release what I can't control. Suddenly your mental load feels lighter. Because freedom isn't having everything under control, it's learning to let go of what never was.
9. Gratitude first, always. Want a fast track to happiness? Gratitude. Tell yourself, gratitude first, always. Gratitude before the coffee. Gratitude before the paycheck. Gratitude before the success. When you focus on what you already have, you multiply your joy. And here's the secret. The grateful person is never poor.
10. Rest is productive. Let's kill the hustle culture myth. Sleep isn't laziness. Rest isn't weakness. Say it. Rest is productive. Because when you rest, your body heals, your mind resets, your creativity sparks. Burnout doesn't build empires. Balance does.
11. I choose peace over drama. Every day, you're invited to drama. Gossip, arguments, social media wars. But here's your power move. Decline the invitation. Whisper to yourself, I choose peace over drama. Not every battle needs your energy. Not every opinion needs your response. And not every loud voice deserves your attention. Protect your peace. It's your most valuable currency.
12. My future is built today. Don't wait for someday. Don't wait for motivation to magically show up. Tell yourself daily, my future is built today. Every choice is a brick. Every action is a deposit. Every day is an investment. Your dream life isn't built in a single leap. It's built in daily steps. And the step you take today, that's the one your future self will thank you for.
So let's recap the 12 things to tell yourself daily. I control my response. Today is a fresh start. Progress, not perfection. I am enough. Discomfort equals growth. I don't chase, I attract. Small habits create big results. I release what I can't control. Gratitude first, always. Rest is productive. I choose peace over drama. My future is built today.
If you start telling yourself these things, you won't just live differently, you'll feel differently. Better daily living doesn't come from outside. It starts inside, with the words you feed your mind. So, here's the challenge. Pick one of these phrases, write it down, say it every day this week, and watch how your life shifts. If this helped you, hit that like button. Subscribe for more life-changing content. And remember, your daily thoughts create your daily reality.
Welcome back to Stoic Flow, Successful, Fulfilled Friends.
Life will break you. Maybe it already has. The loss of a loved one, a career that collapsed, a betrayal you never saw coming, or perhaps the quiet kind of suffering. Depression, burnout, the feeling that the world kept moving forward while you were left behind. Here's the truth. You can't always control what happens to you, but you can control how you rebuild after. The Stoics believed that adversity is not the end of your story. It's the raw material from which strength, character, and wisdom are forged. Marcus Aurelius, who faced plagues, wars, and betrayal, wrote, "What stands in the way becomes the way." So today, let's talk about how to rebuild yourself after hard times. Not just
1. Accept what has happened. The first step in rebuilding is acceptance. Not denial, not pretending, but radical acceptance of reality as it is. Seneca reminds us, fate leads the willing and drags the unwilling. When we fight reality, when we say, this shouldn't have happened, we chain ourselves to suffering. But when we say, it has happened, now what can I do? We take back our power. Think of a building after an earthquake. Before you can rebuild, you have to survey the ruins. You have to face what's broken. The same is true of life. Take inventory. What happened? What was lost? What remains? This honesty is painful, but it's also the foundation of growth. 2. Detach identity from circumstance. Maybe you lost your job. Maybe your relationship ended. Maybe your health was shaken. It's easy to confuse these things with who you are. But Epictetus taught that we are not our possessions, titles, or even our physical state. We are our choices, our character. If your house burns down, you are not a ruined person. You are a person standing among ruins, free to build again. Repeat this to yourself. I am not what I lost. I am what I choose to become next. This shift in identity is crucial. Without it, you rebuild in fear, clinging to the past. With it, you rebuild with freedom, creating a new future. 3.
Find stability in daily discipline. When life shatters, the smallest actions can feel impossible. But Stoicism teaches that order begins in the little things. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, 'I am rising to do the work of a human being.'" When everything feels uncertain, give yourself anchors. Wake up at the same time each day. Move your body, even if it's just a walk. Journal your thoughts to bring clarity to the chaos. Eat in a way that nourishes you, not numbs you. These aren't trivial. They are bricks in the foundation of your new life. Each act of discipline whispers, "I am building again. I am taking control."
4. Reframe hardship as training. The Stoics believed that every hardship is a kind of training ground for the soul. Epictetus compared life struggles to sparring in the gymnasium. He said, "Difficulties show a person's character. They introduce you to yourself. Instead of asking, 'Why me?' ask, 'What is this teaching me?' Loss teaches gratitude. Betrayal teaches discernment. Failure teaches resilience. Illness teaches presence. Hardship isn't a punishment, it's preparation. Each difficulty is equipping you for the next chapter of your life, a chapter you couldn't yet see. These aren't trivial, they are bricks in the foundation of your new life. Each act of discipline whispers, "I am building again. I am taking control." 5. Rebuild with purpose, not just comfort. When people try to rebuild, they often aim for comfort. "I just want things to be easy again." But the Stoics remind us the goal is not comfort, it's virtue. Virtue means living with courage, justice, self-control, and wisdom. So ask yourself, what kind of person do I want to be on the other side of this storm? Don't just patch up the old life, build a new one rooted in meaning. Maybe that means pursuing work that matters, instead of work that merely pays. Maybe it means relationships built on truth, not convenience. Maybe it means prioritizing health, time, and presence instead of endless distraction. Your pain gave you clarity. Don't waste it. 6. Surround yourself with builders, not destroyers. No one rebuilds alone. The Stoics valued friendship, mentorship, and community. Seneca said, "One man is no more a friend without another than he is a father without a child." If you want to rebuild, look around you. Who in your life encourages your growth? Who drags you back into old patterns? Who sees your potential, not just your past? Detach from those who thrive on destruction. Seek out those who build with you. Friends who challenge, mentors who guide, communities that uplift. Rebuilding is not only about the bricks you lay, but the hands that help you carry them. 7. Turn pain into service. One of the most powerful ways to heal is to help others heal. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that he existed to serve, not to retreat into self-pity. And the paradox of suffering is this: when you share the lessons you've learned, your wounds become wisdom. The person who overcame addiction helps others break free. The one who lost everything teaches resilience. The one who grieved deeply offers compassion no book could teach him. Ask yourself, how can my struggle serve someone else? In that question, pain transforms into purpose.
8. Practice gratitude for what remains.
Gratitude is not about ignoring pain. It's about refusing to let pain blind you to what's still here. Epictetus said, "Do not spoil what you have by desiring what you have not." If you lost much, you still have breath. You still have today. You still have the chance to rebuild. Write down 3 things each day you're grateful for. They may be small: sunlight, a meal, a single friend who stayed. But gratitude is the fuel of resilience. It reminds you that even in the ashes, there is beauty.
9. See this not as the end, but the beginning. Hard times feel like endings, but endings are illusions. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "What we call the beginning is often the end, and to make an end is to make a beginning." The end is where we start from. The old life collapsed, yes, but from the ruins rises a new one, built with wisdom you did not have before, forged in fire you did not expect to endure. Don't just ask, "How do I recover what I lost?" Instead, ask, "Who can I become because of what I've endured?" That question turns pain into possibility.
Closing reflection. If you are in the ashes right now, hear this. You are not broken. You are in the process of becoming. The Stoics did not seek a life free from hardship. They sought a life where hardship became fuel. And so can you. Accept what has happened. Detach from what was lost. Anchor yourself in discipline. Reframe pain as training. Rebuild with purpose. Surround yourself with builders. Turn pain into service. Practice gratitude. See this not as the end, but the beginning. You're standing at the ruins of the old, but remember, ruins are not the end. They are where new foundations are laid. So rise. Pick up one brick today. Lay it down with courage. Then another tomorrow. Until one day, you'll look around and see not just a rebuilt life, but a stronger, wiser, freer self than you ever thought possible. As Marcus Aurelius said, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. And the way forward begins now. Welcome back to Stoic Flow, Successful, Fulfilled Friends.
Everyone wants change, but most people chase it the wrong way. We set goals, we dream big, we wait for motivation, and then we wonder why nothing sticks. James Clear, in Atomic Habits, reveals a truth the Stoics knew centuries ago. Real transformation doesn't happen in grand gestures, but in small, repeated actions that shape who we become. In this video, we're going to explore how Stoic wisdom and Atomic Habits align, and how you can use them together to build discipline, peace of mind, and lasting change in your daily life.
1. Identity-based habits. We often chase goals like trophies, losing 10 pounds, earning more money, or reading a certain number of books. But James Clear, in Atomic Habits, reminds us that true change doesn't come from chasing outcomes. It comes from shifting identity. Instead of asking, "What do I want to achieve?" ask, "Who do I want to become?" This is exactly what the Stoics taught nearly 2,000 years ago. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." He didn't say to merely perform good acts occasionally or to seek recognition for them. He urged us to become the kind of person for whom good action is natural. The Stoics understood that every action is a vote for the type of person you are becoming. Each time you choose patience over anger, honesty over deceit, or discipline over indulgence,
You reinforce your identity as someone who lives with virtue. The power lies in repetition. A single act of courage doesn't make you courageous, but 1,000 small acts of courage practiced daily form the bedrock of character. So, don't simply aim to do virtuous things. Aim to be virtuous. See yourself as the kind of person who embodies wisdom, justice, temperance, and courage. From there, your actions naturally align. Because the truth is, goals will come and go, but identity, the kind of person you are becoming, endures. And that is where real freedom lives.
2. The power of small actions. We tend to believe that transformation requires grand gestures, a sudden breakthrough, a dramatic life change, a bold resolution. But as James Clear reminds us in Atomic Habits, true change is rarely explosive. It's subtle. It's the quiet accumulation of small, consistent actions that compound into something extraordinary. The Stoics knew this well. Epictetus taught, no great thing is created suddenly. Just as a tree grows from an unseen seed and a sculptor shapes marble chip by chip, our character is formed not by rare moments of brilliance, but by the countless small choices we make each day. Think about it. Choosing patience in a single frustrating moment may feel insignificant, but when practiced over and over, it reshapes your nature. Choosing moderation at one meal may seem trivial, yet repeated daily, it becomes a life of temperance. Choosing honesty in one conversation may seem like nothing, but with practice, it forms a reputation and a conscience aligned with truth. This is the compound interest of virtue. Just as money grows when invested consistently, the soul grows strong when we invest in small, daily acts of wisdom, courage, justice, and self-control. So, do not underestimate the power of what feels small. Every decision you make is training your soul. Every action is a step either toward vice or virtue. The Stoic asks, not what grand thing will I do today, but what small thing will I do well and repeat until it defines who I am. 3. Environment shapes behavior. We often believe our willpower is enough to carry us through any challenge. But James Clear, in Atomic Habits, makes an important observation. Your environment often shapes your behavior more than sheer discipline does. If you want to change your habits, change what surrounds you. The Stoics understood this deeply. They warned that the soul is impressionable, shaped by the people we spend time with, the things we expose ourselves to, and the environments we choose. Epictetus put it plainly, if you spend your time with idle men, you will become idle yourself. Think about your daily surroundings. If your environment tempts you toward distraction, you'll drift from focus. If you surround yourself with people who complain, you'll find your own spirit sinking into negativity. But if your space is ordered, if your companions embody discipline and wisdom, you will rise to their level almost without realizing it. This is not about perfection, but about alignment. A Stoic does not try to conquer every temptation head-on. They simply arrange their lives so that virtue is the natural path, not the difficult one. Want to practice temperance? Remove excess. Don't just resist it. Want to be more just? Spend time with those who live fairly and honorably. The truth is, we are always being shaped. The question is, by what? By chaos or order? By vice
or virtue, by chance or by deliberate design. A Stoic chooses their environment wisely, knowing it is silently sculpting their soul. 4. The plateau of latent potential. One of the greatest frustrations in life is putting in effort without seeing results. You go to the gym for weeks, but the mirror doesn't change. You practice patience, yet still feel anger rising. You write daily, but your words seem clumsy. James Clear calls this the plateau of latent potential. It's the hidden phase of growth, where your effort feels invisible, but transformation is quietly happening beneath the surface, like ice warming from 29 to 32 degrees. For hours, nothing seems to change, until suddenly, it melts. The Stoics understood this truth long before modern psychology. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, "What is not good for the hive is not good for the bee." In other words, growth is interconnected, but not always visible. Virtue matures silently, deep within, before it reveals itself outwardly. Epictetus would say, "You are not training for applause today, you are training for strength tomorrow." Just as an athlete doesn't see their muscles grow each time they lift, the philosopher doesn't see immediate results in character, but with patience, both are transformed. So, when progress feels invisible, do not despair. Trust that each repetition is shaping you, even if you cannot yet see it. Small actions compound silently until they break through suddenly. A Stoic accepts the hidden season of growth, because they know that true change is not immediate. It is inevitable if only you persist.
5. Goals versus systems. Most of us live chasing goals, a promotion, a milestone, a finish line. And while goals can give direction, James Clear points out in Atomic Habits that they are not what creates lasting progress. What truly matters are the systems, the daily practices that make the outcome inevitable. The Stoics would agree. They taught that outcomes are not within our control, only our actions are. Seneca wrote, "Our business is to play the assigned part well, but to choose it belongs to another." The Stoic does not cling to the goal, because the result is fate's domain. What belongs to us is the process, the system. For example, instead of saying, "I want to be calm," the Stoic builds a system. Daily reflection, practicing patience in conversation, preparing the mind for adversity each morning. Instead of saying, "I want to be wise," they commit to reading, journaling, and questioning their assumptions daily. The paradox is that when you focus less on the goal and more on the system, you often reach the outcome anyway. But even if you don't, you still succeed, because you lived today with discipline and virtue. A goal can be missed, delayed, or denied, but a system, a way of living aligned with wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance, is always within reach. So don't ask only, "What do I want to achieve?" Ask instead, "What system of daily actions will make me the kind of person I wish to be?"
6. Breaking bad habits with inversion. Bad habits rarely vanish through sheer willpower. James Clear teaches a principle called inversion. Instead of only trying to force good habits, make bad ones invisible, unattractive, difficult, and unsatisfying. In other words, weaken the roots of the habit until it withers. The Stoics understood this well. They warned us not to wrestle endlessly with vice, but to starve it of attention. Seneca wrote, "The mind must be freed from the passions if you would be happy." And the way to free the mind is not by fueling temptation with focus, but by quietly stepping away from it. Think about anger. The more you rehearse your outrage, the stronger it grows. But if you pause, withdraw, and refuse to indulge the flame, it fades. Think about indulgence. The more you keep your house stocked with excess, the more you'll consume. But if you remove the source, you practice temperance with ease. Vice thrives in an environment of attention and availability. But when you make it invisible, when you don't place yourself where envy, anger, or excess can feed, it weakens. Virtue, by contrast, becomes easier when you make it the obvious, simple choice. A Stoic does not merely fight temptation. They reshape their life so that virtue is supported and vice is starved. Because in the end, breaking a bad habit is less about overpowering it and more about refusing to give it oxygen.
7. The role of repetition over motivation. Most people wait for motivation before taking action. They think, I'll work when I feel inspired. I'll practice discipline when I feel strong. But James Clear reminds us in Atomic Habits, action doesn't come from motivation. Motivation often comes from action. Repetition, not fleeting bursts of energy, is what shapes lasting change. The Stoics understood this long before. Epictetus taught, if you want to be a writer, write. If you want to be a philosopher, practice philosophy. He didn't say, wait until you feel ready. He urged us to begin, and to begin again every day. Motivation is a mood. It rises and falls with circumstances. A good night's sleep, a burst of excitement, a surge of emotion. But repetition builds character regardless of how you feel. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the habit of acting rightly in its presence. Temperance is not occasional restraint, but the repeated choice of moderation over excess. Each repetition carves grooves into the soul, shaping who we are becoming. Skipping one practice matters less than the mindset of persistence, showing up again and again until the action becomes part of your nature. The Stoic does not ask, do I feel like it today? They ask, what is the right thing to do today? And then they do it, regardless of mood. Because in the end, virtue is not built on inspiration, it is built on repetition.
8. Habit tracking and reflection. James Clear highlights a powerful tool in Atomic Habits, habit tracking. By recording your actions, you make your progress visible, and each mark reinforces your identity. The act of seeing your efforts stack up becomes its own form of motivation. The Stoics practiced something strikingly similar long before charts and checklists existed. Each night, they engaged in reflection. Seneca wrote, "When the light has been removed and my wife has fallen silent, I examine my entire day and go back over what I've done and said. I conceal nothing from myself." This was their form of tracking, not just counting actions, but weighing them against their values. Did I act with courage today? Did I practice justice in my dealings? Did I give in to anger, or did I master myself? Reflection provides feedback. It reveals patterns we might otherwise ignore. Just as a written habit tracker exposes whether you are consistent in exercise, Stoic journaling exposes whether you are consistent in virtue. It's a mirror for the soul. The power lies not in self-criticism, but in honest awareness. You cannot improve what you refuse to measure. You cannot strengthen a virtue you never pause to examine. So, at the end of each day, pause, write, reflect. Track not just what you did, but who you were becoming. Because the truest measure of progress is not whether you reached your goals, but whether your character is growing closer to wisdom and virtue.
9. The 2-minute rule. One of the greatest obstacles to growth is overthinking the start. We want to exercise, but we imagine the whole workout. We want to read, but we picture finishing the book. The weight of the entire task makes us hesitate. James Clear offers a simple solution, the 2-minute rule. Make every habit so small that it takes less than 2 minutes to begin. Want to read more? Just open the book. Want to meditate? Sit down and close your eyes. Want to exercise? Put on your shoes. Momentum carries you forward once you start. The Stoics lived by the same principle. Epictetus said, "First say to yourself what you would be, then do what you have to do." He didn't tell us to conquer everything at once. He told us to begin, here, now, in the smallest way possible. Courage is not proven in a single grand act, but in beginning with small moments of bravery. Temperance is not about renouncing all pleasure at once, but about saying no once, and then again tomorrow. Greatness is built on beginnings, repeated daily. When the mind resists, shrink the task. Start with what you can do now, in 2 minutes or less. Once you begin, you are no longer fighting against the mountain, only taking the next step. The Stoic knows, the path to virtue is not walked in leaps. It is walked in simple, small beginnings, and those beginnings are always within your power.
10. The compound interest of character. James Clear describes habits as the compound interest of self-improvement. Just as money grows when invested consistently, small habits compound into profound change over time. Each choice may seem insignificant on its own, but together they shape destiny. The Stoics framed this in terms of character. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that life is nothing more than the sum of thoughts and actions. Such as are your habitual thoughts, such also will be the character of your mind. One act of courage does not make you courageous, but 1,000 small acts, repeated over years, shape you into someone unshakable. One choice of honesty does not make you just, but living with honesty day after day makes justice your very nature. This is why the Stoics urged vigilance in the smallest matters, for every decision trains the soul, moving it closer to virtue or dragging it toward vice. And no decision is too small, because each one compounds silently, building the habits of tomorrow's self. Think of your daily actions as deposits in the bank of character. They may not seem to matter today, but over time they create wealth or poverty of the soul. The lesson is simple. If you want to live with wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance, invest daily in small acts of each. The returns may not be immediate, but they are inevitable. Because the greatest wealth is not measured in possessions, but in the compound interest of a virtuous life.
Resilience is not a gift handed to us by fortune, but a fire built within. A fire that must be tended through trial, patience, and understanding. Imagine a man walking through the streets of a city that never sleeps, burdened by losses he never saw coming. His business, once thriving, has collapsed. His closest friend has betrayed him. His health wavers under stress. To any observer, he seems to carry an invisible weight pressing him toward the ground. Yet, his steps do not stop. What keeps him moving? What is the invisible force that refuses to let him be broken, though life has struck with cruelty? That force is resilience, and it is not born from escaping hardship, but from embracing it. The Stoics taught us long ago that life will never be free from pain. Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself that he must rise each morning expecting to meet the ungrateful, the arrogant, the treacherous, and still not be surprised, for this is human nature. Epictetus reminded us that we are not masters of what happens, only of how we choose to respond.
Seneca observed that adversity is the forge in which character is shaped. And all these voices, echoing across centuries, tell us the same truth. Resilience is not resistance to suffering, but transformation through it. Consider a tree in a violent storm. A rigid, brittle tree will snap under the wind's pressure, but one with roots deep in the earth and branches that bend will survive. It does not resist the storm with stubborn pride, but with adaptability. So too must a person learn to endure. Life will strike us with storms, failed relationships, financial ruin, illness, rejection, betrayal. No one escapes. If we believe resilience means never bending, we will break. But if we understand resilience as the ability to bend without losing our roots, to suffer without losing our reason, then we can stand even when the sky itself seems to collapse.
Imagine the man again, walking home after the collapse of his business. He enters the small apartment, far different from the grand office he once had. For a moment, despair claws at him. He thinks of all he has lost, all the years of effort, and feels the sting of humiliation. Yet in that moment, he remembers the words of Epictetus, "You may fetter my leg, but not even Zeus himself can overpower my will." What was truly his had not been taken. His character, his reason, his ability to choose, his attitude, these were intact. Slowly, he begins to see his situation differently. He may have lost wealth, but he has gained clarity. He may have lost status, but he has been reminded of what cannot be taken: his integrity, his courage, his mind. Resilience begins here, in the recognition that what is most essential cannot be destroyed by external events. We suffer when we confuse possessions, reputation, or the opinions of others with our true selves. But when we see these as externals, when we place our identity in what lies within, we gain an unshakable strength. Fortune may strip away everything else, but she cannot strip us of the ability to endure with dignity. Yet resilience is not passive. It does not mean waiting in silence for life to improve. It means actively engaging with hardship, turning it into a teacher. The Stoics often compared life to the gymnasium. A wrestler who faces only weak opponents never grows strong. In the same way, a person who faces no hardship never develops resilience. Every obstacle is an invitation to train. The betrayal of a friend is a chance to practice forgiveness and caution. The collapse of wealth is a chance to practice moderation and creativity. Illness is a chance to practice patience and gratitude for what remains. Each hardship, unwelcome though it may be, is an opportunity to shape the soul.
Think of a soldier returning from battle, scarred but alive. His scars are not signs of weakness, but of endurance. They tell a story. He was struck, but he did not fall. He was wounded, but he endured. Resilience is like this. It leaves marks, yes, but these marks are signs of a life lived with courage. When we face hardship, we may not emerge unscathed, but we can emerge unbroken. And in time, those scars become reminders of what we are capable of surviving. This is why Marcus Aurelius wrote that the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. To a resilient soul, obstacles are not dead ends, but stepping stones. Imagine walking through a dense forest, blocked at every turn by fallen trees and tangled roots. A person without resilience sits down in despair, cursing fate. But a resilient person sees each fallen tree as a chance to climb, each root as a chance to learn balance. The forest does not change, but the traveler's response does. This is the essence of Stoic resilience. Life will not always bend to us, but we can always bend to life. Still, resilience is not built in a single moment of crisis. It is built daily in the small choices we make. The discipline of the mind is like the training of an athlete. Each time we restrain anger instead of letting it explode, we strengthen resilience. Each time we accept what we cannot change, rather than drowning in frustration, we strengthen resilience. Each time we wake after failure and try again, we strengthen resilience. It is not one grand act, but 1,000 small acts of endurance and clarity that form the resilient soul.
But perhaps the greatest test of resilience is not when disaster strikes, but in the long, quiet struggles that wear us down slowly. The grind of daily stress, the dull ache of loneliness, the uncertainty of the future. These are battles often harder than a single dramatic loss. For these, the Stoics advise us to keep perspective. We must remind ourselves that time is short, that every moment wasted in despair is a moment lost forever. We must remember that nothing is permanent, not even pain. The waves of hardship rise and fall, and while they may seem endless, they too will pass. Resilience means enduring not just the sudden storm, but also the slow erosion of doubt and fear, holding firm to the belief that we can endure until the tide shifts. The man in our story eventually rebuilds his life, not in the same form, not with the same wealth or recognition, but with something greater: wisdom. He learns to live with less and discovers that freedom lies not in abundance, but in self-sufficiency. He learns that true friends reveal themselves in adversity, and he cherishes them more. He learns that the opinions of others are fleeting, and he grounds himself instead in the steady voice of his own reason. And though he would not have chosen his hardships, he sees now that they have shaped him into someone stronger, calmer, and more compassionate. This is the paradox of resilience. The very things that threaten to destroy us can, if we face them rightly, become the foundation of our strength. And so the lesson stands not only for him, but for all of us. Resilience is the art of living well through what we cannot control. It is the refusal to let external blows dictate the state of our inner being. It is the courage to say, "This I did not choose, but this I will endure." It is the wisdom to know that suffering itself cannot define us unless we let it. And it is the quiet triumph of rising each day, no matter how heavy the world seems, and continuing forward with dignity.
For in the end, resilience is not about surviving one great trial, but about living each day with the strength to endure, adapt, and grow. The Stoics remind us that fate will strike, fortune will shift, and all things external will come and go. But within us lies the power to choose our response, and in that choice lies our freedom. Resilience is not the absence of pain, but the presence of strength. And it is in this strength that we find not only survival, but the possibility of flourishing in a world that tests us all. Welcome back to Stoic Flow, successful, fulfilled friends.
Everyone wants change, but most people chase it the wrong way. We set goals, we dream big, we wait for motivation, and then we wonder why nothing sticks. James Clear, in Atomic Habits, reveals a truth the Stoics knew centuries ago. Real transformation doesn't happen in grand gestures, but in small, repeated actions that shape who we become. In this video, we're going to explore how Stoic wisdom and Atomic Habits align, and how you can use them together to build discipline, peace of mind, and lasting change in your daily life.
1. Identity-based habits. We often chase goals like trophies, losing 10 pounds, earning more money, or reading a certain number of books. But James Clear, in Atomic Habits, reminds us that true change doesn't come from chasing outcomes. It comes from shifting identity. Instead of asking, "What do I want to achieve?" ask, "Who do I want to become?" This is exactly what the Stoics taught nearly 2,000 years ago. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." He didn't say to merely perform good acts occasionally or to seek recognition for them. He urged us to become the kind of person for whom good action is natural. The Stoics understood that every action is a vote for the type of person you are becoming. Each time you choose patience over anger, honesty over deceit, or discipline over indulgence, you reinforce your identity as someone who lives with virtue. The power lies in repetition. A single act of courage doesn't make you courageous, but 1,000 small acts of courage practiced daily form the bedrock of character. So, don't simply aim to do virtuous things. Aim to be virtuous. See yourself as the kind of person who embodies wisdom, justice, temperance, and courage. From there, your actions naturally align. Because the truth is, goals will come and go, but identity, the kind of person you are becoming, endures. And that is where real freedom lives. 2. The power of small actions. We tend to believe that transformation requires grand gestures, a sudden breakthrough, a dramatic life change, a bold resolution. But as James Clear reminds us in Atomic Habits, true change is rarely explosive. It's subtle. It's the quiet accumulation of small, consistent actions that compound into something extraordinary. The Stoics knew this well. Epictetus taught, "No great thing is created suddenly." Just as a tree grows from an unseen seed and a sculptor shapes marble chip by chip, our character is formed not by rare moments of brilliance, but by the countless small choices we make each day. Think about it. Choosing patience in a single frustrating moment may feel insignificant, but when practiced over and over, it reshapes your nature. Choosing moderation at one meal may seem trivial, yet repeated daily, it becomes a life of temperance. Choosing honesty in one conversation may seem like nothing, but with practice, it forms a reputation and a conscience aligned with truth. This is the compound interest of virtue. Just as money grows when invested consistently, the soul grows strong when we invest in small, daily acts of wisdom, courage, justice, and self-control. So, do not underestimate the power of what feels small. Every decision you make is training your soul. Every action is a step either toward vice or virtue. The Stoic asks, not what grand thing will I do today, but what small thing will I do well and repeat until it defines who I am. 3. Environment shapes behavior. We often believe our willpower is enough to carry us through any challenge. But James Clear, in Atomic Habits, makes an important observation. Your environment often shapes your behavior more than sheer discipline does. If you want to change your habits, change what surrounds you. The Stoics understood this deeply. They warned that the soul is impressionable, shaped by the people we spend time with, the things we expose ourselves to, and the environments we choose. Epictetus put it plainly, if you spend your time with idle men, you will become idle yourself. Think about your daily surroundings. If your environment tempts you toward distraction, you'll drift from focus. If you surround yourself with people who complain,
you'll find your own spirit sinking into negativity. But if your space is ordered, if your companions embody discipline and wisdom, you will rise to their level almost without realizing it. This is not about perfection, but about alignment. A Stoic does not try to conquer every temptation head-on. They simply arrange their lives so that virtue is the natural path, not the difficult one. Want to practice temperance? Remove excess. Don't just resist it. Want to be more just? Spend time with those who live fairly and honorably. The truth is, we are always being shaped. The question is, by what? By chaos or order? By vice or virtue? By chance or by deliberate design? A Stoic chooses their environment wisely, knowing it is silently sculpting their soul.
4. The plateau of latent potential. One of the greatest frustrations in life is putting in effort without seeing results. You go to the gym for weeks, but the mirror doesn't change. You practice patience, yet still feel anger rising. You write daily, but your words seem clumsy. James Clear calls this the plateau of latent potential. It's the hidden phase of growth, where your effort feels invisible, but transformation is quietly happening beneath the surface, like ice warming from 29 to 32 degrees. For hours, nothing seems to change, until suddenly, it melts. The Stoics understood this truth long before modern psychology. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, "What is not good for the hive is not good for the bee." In other words, growth is interconnected, but not always visible. Virtue matures silently, deep within, before it reveals itself outwardly. Epictetus would say, "You are not training for applause today, you are training for strength tomorrow." Just as an athlete doesn't see their muscles grow each time they lift, the philosopher doesn't see immediate results in character, but with patience, both are transformed. So, when progress feels invisible, do not despair. Trust that each repetition is shaping you, even if you cannot yet see it. Small actions compound silently until they break through suddenly. A Stoic accepts the hidden season of growth, because they know that true change is not immediate. It is inevitable if only you persist.
5. Goals versus systems. Most of us live chasing goals, a promotion, a milestone, a finish line. And while goals can give direction, James Clear points out in Atomic Habits that they are not what creates lasting progress. What truly matters are the systems, the daily practices that make the outcome inevitable. The Stoics would agree. They taught that outcomes are not within our control, only our actions are. Seneca wrote, "Our business is to play the assigned part well, but to choose it belongs to another." The Stoic does not cling to the goal, because the result is fate's domain. What belongs to us is the process, the system. For example, instead of saying, "I want to be calm," the Stoic builds a system. Daily reflection, practicing patience in conversation, preparing the mind for adversity each morning. Instead of saying, "I want to be wise," they commit to reading, journaling, and questioning their assumptions daily. The paradox is that when you focus less on the goal and more on the system, you often reach the outcome anyway. But even if you don't, you still succeed, because you lived today with discipline and virtue. A goal can be missed, delayed, or denied, but a system, a way of living aligned with wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance, is always within reach. So don't ask only, "What do I want to achieve?" Ask instead,
What system of daily actions will make me the kind of person I wish to be?
6. Breaking bad habits with inversion. Bad habits rarely vanish through sheer willpower. James Clear teaches a principle called inversion. Instead of only trying to force good habits, make bad ones invisible, unattractive, difficult, and unsatisfying. In other words, weaken the roots of the habit until it withers. The Stoics understood this well. They warned us not to wrestle endlessly with vice, but to starve it of attention. Seneca wrote, "The mind must be freed from the passions if you would be happy." And the way to free the mind is not by fueling temptation with focus, but by quietly stepping away from it. Think about anger. The more you rehearse your outrage, the stronger it grows. But if you pause, withdraw, and refuse to indulge the flame, it fades. Think about indulgence. The more you keep your house stocked with excess, the more you'll consume. But if you remove the source, you practice temperance with ease. Vice thrives in an environment of attention and availability. But when you make it invisible, when you don't place yourself where envy, anger, or excess can feed, it weakens. Virtue, by contrast, becomes easier when you make it the obvious, simple choice. A Stoic does not merely fight temptation. They reshape their life so that virtue is supported and vice is starved. Because in the end, breaking a bad habit is less about overpowering it and more about refusing to give it oxygen.
7. The role of repetition over motivation. Most people wait for motivation before taking action. They think, I'll work when I feel inspired. I'll practice discipline when I feel strong. But James Clear reminds us in Atomic Habits, action doesn't come from motivation. Motivation often comes from action. Repetition, not fleeting bursts of energy, is what shapes lasting change. The Stoics understood this long before. Epictetus taught, if you want to be a writer, write. If you want to be a philosopher, practice philosophy. He didn't say, wait until you feel ready. He urged us to begin, and to begin again every day. Motivation is a mood. It rises and falls with circumstances. A good night's sleep, a burst of excitement, a surge of emotion. But repetition builds character regardless of how you feel. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the habit of acting rightly in its presence. Temperance is not occasional restraint, but the repeated choice of moderation over excess. Each repetition carves grooves into the soul, shaping who we are becoming. Skipping one practice matters less than the mindset of persistence, showing up again and again until the action becomes part of your nature. The Stoic does not ask, do I feel like it today? They ask, what is the right thing to do today? And then they do it, regardless of mood. Because in the end, virtue is not built on inspiration, it is built on repetition.
8. Habit tracking and reflection. James Clear highlights a powerful tool in Atomic Habits, habit tracking. By recording your actions, you make your progress visible, and each mark reinforces your identity. The act of seeing your efforts stack up becomes its own form of motivation. The Stoics practiced something strikingly similar long before charts and checklists existed. Each night, they engaged in reflection. Seneca wrote, "When the light has been removed and my wife has fallen silent, I examine my entire day and go back over what I've done and said. I conceal nothing from myself." This was their form of tracking, not just counting actions, but weighing them against their values. Did I act with courage today? Did I practice justice in my dealings? Did I give in to anger, or did I master myself? Reflection provides feedback. It reveals patterns we might otherwise ignore. Just as a written habit tracker exposes whether you are consistent in exercise,
Stoic journaling exposes whether you are consistent in virtue. It's a mirror for the soul. The power lies not in self-criticism, but in honest awareness. You cannot improve what you refuse to measure. You cannot strengthen a virtue you never pause to examine. So, at the end of each day, pause, write, reflect. Track not just what you did, but who you were becoming. Because the truest measure of progress